Hey everybody, welcome to the Roundtable at Laetro. Here creatives get together and chat about their work experience inside and outside of Laetro. Our purpose is to illuminate, invigorate, and maybe even entertain. Now, I know what you're thinking, there's no table. So it's certainly not round, but it's like round table vibes. Okay. So I'm Bianca, your resident community keeper at Laetro. And I'd love for you to get to know about the crew I'm sitting with today. My esteemed guests, go ahead and introduce yourself and let's do it alphabetically by first name. So, Amy, why don't you go ahead?
Hi there. I'm Amy Kahn. I'm a producer by trade, so I've been working with Laetro for about 6 months or so as a team lead. A fun fact about me is when I was in college, I studied film, and I was probably one of the very last classes in my school that learned to edit on actual film with this, where you take 16
Oh,
millimeter film and you actually splice it with the guillotine cutter. So even though I work in the digital world, I kind of try to always keep that like handcrafted sensibility.
very nice. Wonderful. Thank you, Amy.
It's an awesome fact.
Yeah. Gage, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, everyone. I was going to say, Bianca, you tasked us with the alphabetical. That threw me in a loop. We're creative people. It's kind of like, I'm like, wait, which one's A, G? No, I'm just kidding.
What order does this go in?
My name is Gage Salzero. I'm a designer, creative, sometimes doing creative direction roles with Laetro. I kind of would just call myself a creative agitator in the sense that I'm invited to meetings to kind of agitate what the brief is and say like, hey, did you think about this? What about this? And that manifests in different ways on certain projects nowadays. But I've been working with the Laetro team for, I don't know, it's been a couple years now. We've been doing a lot of fun stuff. And fun fact, this is a recent obsession that I've been getting into, which is sign painting and trying to get off the computer in the evenings and practice brush stroking and trying to get good at writing these things in very like uniform kind of ways. So it's way less creative and much more like craft and hand done, which is, I don't know, I guess that's a fun fact, but that's something I've been obsessed with lately. And I'll pass it off to you, Michael. No pressure to incorporate your backdrop.
So hi everyone, I'm Michael Elkaslassi. I'm a creative director slash art director slash digital designer, specialize in brand and marketing campaigns. I've been working with Laetro for nearly about a year and a half now. And in the last 22 or 23 years that I've worked in the industry, I've worked with auto companies like Audi, Renault, McLaren. I've worked with fashion labels like Gucci, Chanel, Burberry, Dolce & Gabbana, and other big brands like Nike, Google lots of times, Skype, YouTube. And I've worked at loads of international agencies, including IBM, Publicis, RGA, Leo Burnett's, Tribal DDB, and a few others. And I'm very...
Michael's playing all the hits. Put them
Sorry.
on his pocket.
I was just going to say I'm rather English, but I'm living in Canada for the last 7 years. Yeah, pleased to meet you.
Wonderful. So it sounds like y'all have been working for Laetro for like a good chunk of time. And I'm kind of interested, like which projects, so far as like completed projects that you're allowed to talk about, which projects were most in line like with your interests and values? Whoever wants to go first.
So I just completed a project for Lily AI, and it was a really great experience. Not only because I think what they're doing is pretty cool. The best example I can give you is if suppose you're shopping for something, a dress, and you're trying to just you try to describe the dress. You do a little search of what you're looking for, and you just cannot find it. You're like, you know, in your mind's eye, this is what I'm looking for. But there's a difference between sort of merchant speak and customer speak. So the idea is they help companies. They're a B2B company that helps sort of bridge that gap. So they can have this whole sort of database of terms that will be indexed when someone searches to get what they want, to find what they want. So I think it's a really cool company. And it's also just a wonderful group of human beings that we worked with. on the client side and internally. So it was just really in line with like creating a website for, you know, a really innovative company and getting to really work with, you know, humans who are, you know, fun to work with. Because I think at the end of the day, that's like what for me makes the job worthwhile is, you know, getting to collaborate with brilliant minds who are also very kind and enjoyable.
Wonderful. That sounds like a great experience. And also like a genuinely like I like how they sort of had a focus with their product of like instead of just like a big Gen AI everywhere, it's like specific like you know when you can't find this thing and it's like almost like a linguistic barrier. Like it's
Absolutely. It
yeah,
really, it's an actual need. I'm like, as soon as I was finding out about this company, I thought, yes, I've been there. I've had that problem.
yeah.
Whereas a lot of the new startups that you hear about don't necessarily fill such a particular niche.
Yeah. Very cool. Michael Gage, and what about you?
Um, yeah, for me, a project we recently launched, which was amazing to work on, was the Women Tech Makers story map. So this is so Women Tech Makers are a Google program that help young, help women developers to give them like a range of like resources, and they provide a community for people who are learning and just to inspire people across the world. So they have all of these programs where they have ambassadors, and they record videos of themselves, and there's lots and lots of supporting content like, and so that's all out there kind of across YouTube and across different places and in their website as well. But they wanted something that was a way to showcase all of this content in a kind of really interactive, fun way that storytelling kind of way, right? And so this was a really amazing opportunity to kind of pull all that content into 3D map and at the same time showcase all of Google Maps platforms like recent technologies and APIs and that they've released recently. So they have lots of ways to kind of tell really like immersive storytelling and really like great kind of like rushes into spaces and kind of like in locations and stuff. So what we did was we tied all of the ambassadors to the places where they live and to the places where they kind of grew up and where they learned where they honed their skills. And then we've asked them, as well as like giving their own story, like what are some resources in this area that that you would kind of call out to recommend to people so that they can learn more either about the resource themselves or about the background of the ambassador. So it's become this really amazing like storytelling hub. It's a really smooth experience. It feels super like up to date technology, but in a really meaningful way that tells stories. So that was a really great thing to work on, and it was a really large team that we worked with between Laetro and a development team and Google Maps platform. So yeah, it was really awesome, and that's gone live recently, and we're going to be doing some updates, and we're just about to work with Amy on it.
Wonderful. Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds like it sounds like a great story to tell. And I love just the idea of like making resources available to people. I feel like we are more connected than we've ever been, and sometimes it's still easy to kind of get lost in the shuffle of things. And so that's awesome that you guys highlighted that. It's very cool.
And yeah, also to just to sometimes it really feels when you see someone successful, it just feels like you can never get there, like that's way too high, and it's just this kind of thing about like it's not crazy, like, and just trying to encourage people to join the community as well so that they become that next generation of people.
Yeah, really wonderful.
For me, definitely, it's the one that Bianca we worked on.
Yes.
Features group. So it was actually, I think, one of my first projects maybe with the Laetro team. And I remember being extremely nervous in the kickoffs and things like that. And I think that's part of why I'm very proud of this one for many reasons, because not only what they do, so Algorithms Features Group is sort of like there's like a collective consultancy group, but they also have created this game called Algorithms for the Future that is this vehicle to kind of help corporations, groups, institutions, anyone really that they work with to kind of imagine a better, more equitable future, and thinking of things through, more equitable Afrofuturist kind of way. So that was kind of the manifestation of how they started this card game. But then they're trying to think of like, okay, we want to branch off. We want to do more consultancy and work in different ways. Also do sell the card game as it is, but also like position them online. What they didn't really have a lot of branding or brand elements yet, and they were talking about this vision of the future. And like, I remember like part of the kickoff task, Ahmed was like, can you imagine the website from the future and what that would look like? And it's just like one of those kickoffs where I remember leaving so excited, but also like, oh no, like what am I gonna do? Like I don't know if they know that my abilities, and I don't know if I have the abilities to do something as cool as what this should be. Because I remember just like being filled with such inspiration coming out of that kickoff, and I was really proud of what we made together, because I do feel like what the result was something that lived up to a little bit of that, maybe not all of the vision that they had in their heads, because I always feel like the client has a way better, the most beautiful vision of what the thing is, and our job is often to try to like be the vehicle with our skill sets to kind of get there and figure it out. I feel like I've tapped into like 60% of their creative energy, but I feel like I'm really proud of what we did together and creating something that I couldn't have imagined when we first started to talk about it, in terms of how it turned out and the interactivity and the animations and things like that. It's rare that you get to work on something that feels like you're helping the world in your heart and in your soul, and in everything that every click and every pixel. And it was definitely one of those good opportunities like that just felt like working with amazing people that are trying to change the world in a positive way, which is what we're all here trying to do, right? But I think that was an opportunity through Laetro that I definitely always think back in good ways about, because of that. Not that the other projects don't help the world and things like that. I just feel like this one was the direct part of their mission statement, is to kind of impact the way people think about the future and their opportunities together. I think that was really beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. No, I feel like no, just as you're saying that it's not like the other projects aren't like up to like snuff or anything, but just I do think that's a part of the creative life. Is like sometimes you're more enthusiastic or more in line with some projects than others. And that project was very fun. And it's a cooperative card game. And so you just are like, how could things be better? How can we make this better? And so they're incorporating the power of play to help engage people and change people's mind and help them like dream up something better. And it's easier to get people to imagine what's not yet existing, or even just learn in general by playing instead of just like drilling information into something. So yeah, that was a really awesome project to work on. Yeah, I think that was definitely one of my favorites. And also to kind of clarify, so I am the community keeper at Laetro, but I'm also a copywriter. So that was my work on the algorithm project. Do you feel like you've gotten to work on a good variety of projects at Laetro? Like I feel like it's nice to have a niche, but also a variety of types of projects can be kind of like refreshing. So I'm curious, do you feel like you've worked on a variety, or have you like stayed in a niche?
I definitely feel like that is a unique experience with Laetro, is the variety of projects and types of roles. Like in terms of, I've been asked to jump on as designer on a project. I've been asked to act more as sort of a overseer, directing, helping kind of like other designers work on aspects, and even just like, called into meetings and things like that. So I do feel like there's such variety of talent and different people from industries too. Like usually coming from an agency background, you typically work with copywriters, designers, developers, strategists, but you don't often get to work with the level of illustrators and motion graphics and all these different types of disciplines that Laetro has, and the thinking that you get access to in some of these meetings. It does feel like sometimes like you get a little notification and you're like, all right, you jump into a meeting. You're not going to be asked to kind of do the same type of like mundane kind of task. There's always some interesting kind of like, oh, interesting. I never even knew that this was a part of we're exploring a whole new industry I never even thought about with the AI or something like that. So I definitely think like for me at least, it's been really exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, agreed. Like from a diversity of projects and diversity of teams, I think is just awesome at Laetro. I've worked on so many different kinds of projects since I've been here, like kind of like things like the Google Doodles, where you're like which I worked with you, Bianca, which was
Yeah.
where you're kind of thinking about this, like how to communicate this idea in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of information you need to get over in that time, but it needs to be fun. Then we would work on the storyboards of that and kind of like really flesh it out from the start of that right through to the kind of actually bringing the video to life. And the animations have to be very kind of cute and googly and kind of feel on brand and stuff. So like really, really fun projects like that, to more complex projects like working on some of the Google Maps project platform projects, to a few AI projects as well, working with some AI clients and doing some kind of like kind of more similar to the Doodles type stuff, where you're kind of like trying to solve a complex problem in a very kind of fun and easy to digest way. And in that case, it's like trying to explain the AI business and how that like how this specific AI company works, which is a very complex thing that they were doing, and trying to kind of tell that in a nice kind of very intuitive way. Yeah, to Gabe's point as well, like the normally if you're kind of in-house, you will have maybe 2 or 3 illustrators if you're lucky, whereas in our kind of context, and that's for every kind of role, right, we have like a global kind of like amount of people that we can connect with and stuff, so it just makes projects way more interesting as well. I've been paired with like someone who worked on the visuals for Lion King and Spider-Man and things like that. It's like
That's cool.
it's really, really cool experience so far.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the types of projects I've worked on have just been, run the gamut. I mean, everything from, a pitch deck to a video to a web redesign, and then also just the range of clients, really, and also just I think what they may need from their team lead. There are folks who are just going to say, here's what I need, just get it back to me by X date. Whereas I have, one of the startups that I work with, they consider me an absolute extension of their marketing team. And so I'm on their weekly marketing team calls, and they really bring me in, to not just to execute, but really to help shape their strategy, which is cool as well. And yeah, I've gotten to work with so many different teams and different people all over the world. So it's really great to have that, you really do feel that sense of a creative community, and you just show up and kick off, and you're going to be with people, sometimes, familiar faces, and sometimes people that you've never had the opportunity to work with before.
Wonderful. I'm so happy that you feel that way. I'm happy you can feel the community aspect. It's very good to hear. I do kind of want to break up this next question into 2 parts. So I want you to think of like a creative skill of yours of which you're most proud. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to like identify it. Okay. Do y'all have one? Okay. Why don't you just go around and say what it is in alphabetical order?
Okay. Well, I would say for me, because my role isn't uniquely creative, and it's more about enabling creative teams, I feel like the skill I'm really proud of is just my organizational skills, because I like to be able to provide that sort of cohesion so that to better enable teams to do their best work being creative and not worrying about when some things do or where all the files are, etc.
I feel like mine is also, maybe it's like, this is the classic lame interview answer where it's like, my strength is my weakness or whatever. But one of my skills that I feel like people value me on the team is that I can, that I'm like, my like hitting with like the 7th hour feedback where we're about to launch, and then the client comes back with something that's like, oh no, like, I feel like I'm always like optimistic in sight of any feedback to be like, we'll figure it out, there's a solution. But I say that also because maybe sometimes that is how I could become like in the final hour, keep tweaking, and like some be driving a developer I'm working with nuts or something. But I definitely feel like that's my thing. I'm like, all right, we'll figure it out. There's always some creative way out or something like that.
Yeah.
Similar to what Amy said earlier, actually, I studied for film and film theory at uni. So I have a lot of like kind of time-based media kind of background, and I kind of think in frames a lot. And I find that my skill of it sounds pretty random, but animated GIFs might be one of my kind of
No,
power
this is great.
skills, because so I find them just so useful. Pretty much every project I work on, I can use them in some way or another, right? And it's like it's either from a director point of view, you might be kind of like working with the designer and trying to explain to them positionings, or trying to explain how, like there's a lot of ways that you can kind of speak in GIFs and stuff, and just
Mhm.
kind of like to take someone through a process much easier. And I find that it really works with clients as well, because like it's sometimes if you're just trying to explain an idea, a sketch can sometimes be enough, especially if you're a really kind of eloquent writer and stuff. But other times, I find that making a GIF, or kind of like showing a kind of few sort of staggered thing, like it's almost like it's not even sometimes an animatic. Sometimes it's more just like a kind of pre-animatic or something like that, where you're just kind of taking people through things. I just find it just helps cognitively to kind of work like that with, and people I've worked with as well, like, they seem to respond well to it. So yeah, animated GIFs, FTW.
Okay. Well, nice. It sounds like you've all probably used that skill like on every project, but I'm curious to know if you can tell a short story about when that skill came in clutch when you're working on a Laetro project.
See, so I think, maybe a good example of where this comes in handy on a Laetro project or a sort of series of projects is that I know on Google we have a lot of small, quick turn projects, so it can be a little bit overwhelming. So to be able to like track all of that and what is needed for who by when,
Yeah.
and also just then tracking, both the deliverables, the budgets, and like hopefully communicating really effectively to the team about what's needed and when. It just keeps things from falling by the wayside.
Very cool. Thanks. What about you?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of last year, maybe the experience I was working with the Mercari team on their brand guidelines and trying to document like kind of like doing like a brand archaeology of like figuring out where all the Figma files and everything are, all the different versions of iconography and typography, and trying to codify and have a system to all this, and realizing in that process that it was becoming this very large and but also limited at the same time document. And during that process, discussing with the client and realizing that and kind of feeling like they were talking about maybe like they wanted to approach a rebrand, and kind of I think in that those discussions, maybe that spirit of being like, oh, maybe, and asking them questions and going, and we actually later heard that they were wanting to do a whole rebrand, and then they asked us to come in to do some sprint work, and we impacted a lot of where they're headed with it next, maybe. So I think that was a fun surprise, where I thought, to be honest, at points where they're discussing that, I was like, oh no, did I like shake too much and like this brand guide now? And now we're like talking about a whole rebrand. But I think that it was the catalyst that kind of got them to think about where they could be with their brand versus trying to do, so much with the status quo. They really needed to do something completely different and fresh. And I think that kind of helped. We were able to kind of like really push the needle a little bit on that.
Very cool.
And was the question, how did we use the skill recently?
Yeah.
So there was a project we worked on with Google Maps platform recently, and so my animated GIF / animation skills kind of came into use. We were building which it was a sales tool for the client to show to potential customers in terms of how a chatbot comes to life, and how that can be integrated into the experience for a kind of seamless experience. And it was starting to look like a lot of time for the dev company to build out this chatbot, to train it, etc.
Mm.
So my kind of that was more, I'm kind of cheating a little bit from the animated GIFs to talk about After Effects, but After Effects skills came in because then I basically built out the whole experience just in After Effects as like an animated video. So what you do, you
Mm.
get to a certain part of the interactive experience online, and then when you tap the chatbot, then the video takes over. So we kind of seamlessly integrated that into the experience just to save a lot of dev time, but just still get across the experience perfectly. So that was super handy for that project.
That does sound very handy. I'm happy y'all got to like get those skills in and make it work. Because sometimes, just to be frank, it's kind of scary when you're like, is this gonna work? Is this gonna come through? And you did it. So when it comes to creative industries, what is your quote Roman Empire? And do you know what that is? Have you seen? I guess this depends on how online you are. Have you seen this?
I don't think
Okay, so when something's your Roman Empire, it's like this is my Roman Empire. It's like something you think about constantly or you talk about constantly. So like maybe you can't believe Nike did such and such with their branding, or you're really excited to see how Chat GPT changes this, that, or the third, or like, whatever it is. It's just something like that's something you think about a lot within the creative industries. That like specific thing that's your Roman Empire.
I think, I mean, for me, it's probably it just goes back to like teamwork, which
Yeah.
sounds cheesy, but I've
No.
worked for a lot of different agencies and worked on a lot of different brands, and some are really glamorous and you're doing this really, high profile work, and sometimes it's really not. But like at the end of the day, I can only do what I do when I'm working with awesome, creative, good humans. And I've definitely worked on projects or worked at agencies where everyone's kind of like, you just know everyone's out to get ahead for themselves. Um,
Mm,
and I feel like that's sort of the bad side of the agency world. And so I've kind of just made it my mission to surround myself with awesome teams. And so yeah, I think that's my Roman Empire. It's like, are we all treating each other well while we're creating this awesome work?
yeah. I think that totally makes sense. I mean, it's like I feel like it's kind of like the source. It's just like if like the source isn't there, it's just whatever comes out. It might come out great, might not. Yeah. And so it sounds like you were talking about like people treating each other well is like a part of that. But like what other characteristics in addition do you think help make a great team?
I think it's about open communication. It's about, I think one of the things that I always try to do is like everyone works differently. And so I like to figure out how everyone works most effectively, because it's not one size fits all, right? And so it's like for me, again, being a producer, I feel like you're sort of like, you should be creating the environment that allows everyone to do their best work.
Mm,
So it's like getting to know some people just do not do well in morning meetings. Some people need like like a daily update on here's what we need to accomplish today. Some
mm.
people are like, just don't even talk to me. I'll tell you when I have a blocker. So it's just like understanding how people work and what makes them tick, and then kind of being that glue that holds a team together.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I think with the Roman Empire thing, I don't know. I guess it's tough to imagine the perfect scenario or something like that. But I think the thing I'm always thinking about is I'm more of like in the branding positioning kind of world, and always like looking at like how new companies are being branded and positioned and the trends and all that stuff. And that's definitely
Mm,
like what I'm always thinking about, looking at the blog, like brand new, the blog, and like and the discussions on that. But I do feel like when I think of the Roman Empire idea, I do think of kind of what Amy was talking about, which is like coming from agency and studios background. There's not a lot of communities that are in physical space that are discussing branding and doing it like there used to be previously when a lot of different smaller agencies, I think. And so now that's my new Roman Empire, is trying to find more physical community spaces in New York here
mm,
where AIGA is starting to do more events again. And there's like
What's
co-working
AIJ?
AIGA, which is now
AIGA, sorry.
myself, which is I don't know if like any of the young designers that are coming up now would look at it the same or what, but when I was graduating yesteryear, but it was AIGA, American Institute of Graphic Arts. They were like they would have all the design events, and it felt like everyone worked at an agency and would go to an AIGA event and things like that. And now it's a much different world where everyone's coming from all sorts of different experiences, people freelancing, independent contractors, people working in-house a lot more with companies and building their brands out that way. So it's just I don't know, I feel like I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm trying to explore more here in New York and build more like connections that are interested in that, like small user groups and meetups and things like that. And trying to replace the void that I feel like maybe exists still. I don't know if I'm just not finding the events, but it felt like there used to be a lot more kind of physical meetups around design, things like that. So
Yeah.
that's like the Roman Empire, I guess we'll see, is like building more of a community in New York with designers and branding and stuff like that. More like because there's a lot of tech startup stuff, but not as much like let's just meet and discuss art, design, things that make us tick, things that inspire us. Let's go deep dive into type or things like that. Like a lot of those style of talks and meetups, I feel like are rare and nowadays.
I think that that's a great focus to have. I feel like for the most part, people come from like a schooling and education background where it's like everyone went to the same place every day. And so it was like having like community was more effortless. And so I do
Yeah.
feel like as an adult and as a professional, you really have to like make an effort to be curious and explore and like seek groups and people out and like see what it's like and see if it's a place you want to be. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
For me, I think, I mean, yeah, I'm really kind of curious and fascinated by AI, and
Mm.
like how we're going to use it moving forward, both how brands are going to use it, I'm really interested in, but also how people are going to use it, like how it's like there's so much potential for soulfulness with it, and I think like there's
Mm.
obviously all of the cheap fast things that happen with AI that are probably the things that everyone thinks about kind of first and foremost, but there's like with like OpenAI, deep minds who like come and like tools or like Hugging Face and Stable Diffusion and what's there's a new one like kind of the new version of Runway, which is like animate diff using ControlNet with like latent upscaling and stuff. And all of these kind of things are basically gonna get to the point where you are gonna be able to make a movie from home. And it's just such a crazy idea. And I just think that there's so much potential for creativity with these tools once we kind of gel with them and understand how they can help us rather than how they can give us ideas or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like once you get
Mm.
past ChatGPT doing your homework for you and stuff, it's like how can you actually use these in a really kind of meaningful way that is kind of like going to be the future jobs, you know, like in the next like 10-20 years, that kind of thing. So it's fascinating, and I think it's also fascinating from how brands are using AI as well, and they're very much just at the start of this, you know, like I mean you've got people like companies like Tesla and stuff, or Mercedes, whatever, obviously, you know, kind of like using it in a really kind of meaningful and tangible way that we can understand. But just how it affects all companies and stuff going forward, I think is really interesting challenge for us creatively, you know.
Yeah, I feel like it totally makes sense that that's your empire. I feel like that's on a lot of people's minds right now. I think there's so much potential for generative AI to be used in a really inhumane and kind of careless way. And I feel like as things are right now, it's very easy to do that. And so I think it's going to involve a lot of work of like people being like, if this goes well, this is, you know, what Dave always says, like, how will this go if this goes well? How can this go if this goes well? People using it while still like considering, you know, their fellow creatives and their fellow people in mind. Um, And also, how can this be incorporated into my workflow in a way that's like, this is helping me, but it's not doing everything, but it's not, destroying the economy around me either.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, it's a very big and multifaceted. So yeah, that totally makes sense. Thank you all so much for sharing that. I like hearing what people are like thinking about all the time. Okay, so kind of back to Lytro and focusing on Lytro a little more. Whether it's the kind of clients you can work for, or like the way you get paid, or having projects brought to you, or maybe it's something else. What is your favorite thing about working on projects with Lytro as opposed to any other company?
I think for me, it's really the variety. It's really, the ability to work on so many different types of projects, working with so many different teams, different types of clients. In the last 6, 7 months, I've done just about every type of, digital marketing project you can imagine. And it just keeps it interesting and fun. And just, it keeps me feeling like I'm getting to flex different skills and not getting into a rut. So that's just been awesome.
Very cool.
For me, it's definitely the people. Every team feels like MVPs, where you're people that are coming from, like Mike was saying, excellent illustrators and people that work in the film industry and things like that, and everyone kind of like coming in with their own expertise on one, like, it always feels like this assembled like dream team on every project or something like that I've been on, because I'm learning from everyone that I've been working with, and it always does feel like every new project, it's getting to meet exciting new talented people and learning new things just in the processes. So that's definitely it. It's the people, and that's my favorite part, I think, is just the variety of like waking up and logging in and talking to people from all over the world and industries and things like that, and it's really neat.
Right on.
Yeah. Just to kind of reiterate exactly what you both have said, and kind of what I've said previously, but yeah, it's really, to me, the diversity of projects and the diversity of people. So many cool different projects all happening at the same time, loads of different talent that you're working with all the time. And it's kind of like, because you're working from home, you're working remotely, right? So it's saving you the hour that you would take to get to work and the hour you would take to get back, and you're just able to think and stuff. And I feel like for that reason, it's truly a modern business. And like, I don't thank COVID for many things, but like I do think that, like, COVID did help the world to understand that you can work remotely and effectively, and that it
Yeah.
can be a really smart model, and I think that helped to show, like, like, kind of, I was at a company where we were in the office, and then everybody had to leave and kind of work remotely, and
Yeah.
that was a real experiment, and the bosses of the company didn't know how it was going to pan out, and it was extremely effective. And once where everyone started going back into offices, they stayed as a remote business because they were like, this is just working fine, like. So
Yeah.
it's been really, really interesting, but I feel like Laetro in that whole journey just came just at the right time, because it's just such a good model, and being able to work from anywhere as well, guys. That's a great, sometimes I'll pop back to London to visit my family, and I can still kind of carry on my projects and stuff. So that's incredibly like valuable as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, I like all of that. Thank you all for sharing. We've focused for the most part on projects, but something as the resident community keeper at Laetro I'm kind of interested about is, what do you want from a creative community, whether it be online or in person? Like, what more are you looking for? What would you like from Laetro?
I think some sort of meetup would be awesome at some point. Like, I know that we all operate completely fine as we do and professionally, and this whole thing works perfectly, but I would love the opportunity to like meet up with some of the team at some point. And like, maybe attend an event together or something, like, kind of, if I don't know, like, not necessarily this, but like your South by Southwest type thing, if that's where we were all kind of connecting and stuff, and kind of able to meet together, but then have a great time at the same time. I just think that
Mhm.
would be an awesome thing to, you know, I think it works great as a remote company. Like I'm surprised by, like, I think you do a great job, by the way, Bianca, like, and you know, like the input into Slack and kind of just making everybody feel like kind of like a team and connected and stuff, I think is great. But yeah, these would just be like maybe a once a year thing or something like that where people get together. I think would be awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that my mind immediately went to like maybe we should have another channel where people are just like if they're traveling or something, they can say where they travel to, or like I don't know, I think sometimes it's kind of surprising to realize like, oh, like this person lives an hour away from me. It's like you don't know otherwise. And so yeah, something like that. I will be thinking on it, but yeah, more in person.
What about
I love
project?
that suggestion because I know, again, I echo a lot of what Michael said about the remote work. It really works and it's great and it's efficient. But there is something about meeting a live human in person, especially when you've been collaborating on a screen together for months and all of a sudden it's just it's a great experience. So I love those suggestions.
Yeah, actually, Cliff, you know Cliff Rediker, who's one of the project leads. He happened to be passing Montreal, and he's like, "Yo, I'm going to be passing." So we caught up and had coffee and stuff. It was really cool. Like,
Oh, that's
you
very
know,
cool.
we're sort of doing it independently, but it would be great to do it kind of as a team as well.
That's so good to hear. I'm happy because I definitely want to make sure there's more like bigger events that we can like talk about and like promote as a company. But it is also nice, and we definitely encourage people. Like if you're friends with someone and you're DMing with them or you've worked with them or whatever, please feel free to be like, hey, I'm in wherever. Like let's hang out. So yeah.
That is a cool idea. I never even thought about that with like regionality too, Michael, with like maybe there's a bunch of Laetro people near me in New York and I just never, knew because we're never often like sharing that. Maybe some way of seeing like, hey, you have 5 people near you or something like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Like I
engage.
sometimes,
I'm
oh, sorry,
always
go
in
ahead.
New York, so I'd have no. Sorry, I was just saying, Gage. I'm like always trying to go to New York. So knowing you're there already gives me like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Next time we're gonna meet up, get a coffee, and we'll do it.
we're only an hour flight from each other, you know. Like Montreal's just an hour from New York. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Michael, now that you've been talking about all the Google Maps platform work,
There
I'm
you
thinking
go.
we need a map. We need a
Yeah.
map. Where
Okay. Map.
Oh my
Very
God.
cool. I
Totally.
think that that's probably something that could be done. Is people
Yeah.
just, yeah, like
Like,
almost pretty easily.
especially as like guys have already been kind of made into like icons already and stuff. So you could just
Yeah.
have these kind of icons around the map and stuff. That would be so cool.
That would be neat to just visualize the
Cool.
next. Yeah.
What a great
Awesome.
brainstorm.
I was like, these are great ideas. We need to incorporate this pronto.
I
Okay.
really love that, Amy. That's great.
Thank you, Amy. Okay. Well, Amy, Gage, and Michael, thank you so much for joining me. This conversation was really wonderful. And for everyone watching, thank you for making the roundtable at Laetro part of your day. And we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thanks, see everybody.
Thanks, Bianca.